So I make over 6 figures a year. So why am I still in debt? Well, in my last video, I talked about how I lost 20K in this crypto scam. And you know, after that lesson, you would have thought maybe I would have chose some less riskier routes, but you know what that actually did was it actually pushed me in a more desperate state. So after losing that money, what I began to do was just constantly scanning the internet, looking up how can I make extra money, what ways can I make extra money, looking up on YouTube, watching every single video I can of what kind of side gigs you can do, any little possible thing you can make extra money with. And eventually, you know, I ran into day trading pretty much, which I already, you know, everybody's heard about day trading, but I actually started getting into videos of people showing how to do it. And then next thing I know, I start getting into leverage and how to leverage trade. And that's when it led me in a whole different route. I started getting into the leverage trading and watching videos, watching strategies every day, just obsessing with how am I going to make money with this, watching every single strategy video on day trading I possibly could. And it was really just a bunch of ups and downs. Like, I had times where I felt like I was totally understanding the market, and then next thing I know, I'm lost, because you know, you'll get into it and it'll start going good, and then you'll try strategy, you're like, oh, this is it, now I'm gonna win every trade, and you're just in your mind fantasizing how much money you can make. You know, like, I'm gonna turn $100 into 1,000, and 1,000 to 10,000, and then 100,000, and into $1 million. You start going in this fantasy land, and that's pretty much where I was at. And you know, I had some good times in it over the years of trading. You know, there was a lot of times where, you know, I was making some good trades. Like, I had, you know, I posted one video where, you know, 1 month I turned $300 into 13K, and I just pretty much, it was just with some extra money, you know, that I had, and I wasn't, like, you know, stressing about it. I had like an extra $300 and let me throw it into the market, and I started, you know, building that money up. And next thing I know, it was during a good time. I was like trading with XRP when the market was tanking on XRP, and pretty much, you know, next thing I know, I go from 300 to 1,200, and then, you know, it's just tanking. So it was easy money. You know, I put that 1,200 in again for another short with XRP, and then I go to sleep and I wake up, and then next thing I know, I'm $11,000 in profit. And immediately when I saw that $11,000, I was like, I'm taking it out, because I'd already dreamed of trades that big. Never thought I would actually make a trade like that. And finally I saw it, so there was no hesitation to take that trade out. And you would think, like, after that moment, like, you know, it's all good, like, but it actually led me down a spiral after I made that money. Because after I made it, you know, now $1,000 wasn't enough. You know, $5,000 wasn't enough. And, you know, I kept chasing those big trades, and it kind of led me down a path of, like, losing all that money I'd made. So basically I'm back to square one. And over the months leading after that, I did have some big trades. Like, you know, I had one trade I was up $7,000, but I had these huge projections of trying to surpass my previous, you know, 11K trade. At that point, I wasn't paying attention to the market and what it was really doing. I'm just seeing the long-term benefit I could possibly make, instead of just going ahead and taking just a little bit of profit. I could at least taken 50%, maybe even 70%, and left a little percent in, but I was just so focused on getting those big numbers and just addicted to getting that higher high that, you know, that 7K wasn't enough. And not only that, I had another trade just like that, to where I was at 11,000 like I had before. I was up $11,000. I was at like the biggest trade I had before, but it didn't give me that same excitement. I was wanting more. I was wanting to try to get 20K, 50K. But then again, also both of these trades that I made that money on, like the 7K and the 10K, I had plenty of time to take my profit, you know. Like both of them were like probably a couple of days where I was in that type of profit, but I was chasing those higher numbers. So that's why sometimes, you know, when you get those big trades, it can kind of mess you up, and you're on a whole different learning path. But and you know, in between those times, I had to take some breaks, you know, like because after you see that big number and you see it go to nothing, it kind of took a mental toll on you. That's why trading, it's not really for everybody, because it can really mess with you emotionally and psychologically. It's not as simple as just pressing a buttons. It's your money you're putting into the market. It's emotions tied to that. And you know, every time I lost those big trades, I ended up making bad decisions, revenge trading. Because most of those times I made those big trades, and there was some smaller big, like some other trades that were kind of like in the thousands where I didn't take profit, but those were like the big ones. Like those were my good ones that could have leveled me up, but I didn't take the profit. But like I said, a lot of those times when I made those big trades like that, it hits you so hard emotionally when you lost and you didn't take your profit, that you end up like revenge trading and then ended up losing even more money. So back to the main point of, you know, why I'm still in debt, you know, making over 6 figures. Well, it's because a lot of times, for a good little while, I put a lot of my energy into trading, a lot of money into trading that I could have put in the debt. You know, a lot of the debt I could have paid off by just putting a lot of that money towards trading, towards, you know, debt. And at this point, you know, I'm not like totally against trading and totally done with trading, but at this point in my life, now I'm putting it on the back burner and just focusing on getting those debts paid off. And of course, now that I make the 6 figures a year, over 6 figures, now it's much easier to get those debts resolved. And not long from now, I'll be making a video about how I paid off my debt. But right now, I'm talking to you in the middle of that situation, in the middle of the storm of, you know, working hard to get it done. And eventually I'll get back into the trading. Like I said, I'm not totally against it, but I've come to a realization with trading that really you have to have the right mindset, because it's all about risk management. If you can't be in a right mental state, a patient, you know, not desperate for money mind state, then you're going to make bad decisions. Like, you know, there's no set rules to how much you risk, but you know, like if you have a plan of risking 1% per trade of your capital that you have, and you're not in a good mind state, you're gonna most likely make bad decisions. You're gonna have money that you have your capital, and it's gonna be a lot harder to stick to the 1% rule or whatever percentage rule of risk you have when you pretty much have this desperate state, when you see an opportunity in the market and you want to jump on it and you want to go way more in than you're supposed to. So at the end of the day, I mean, really, when it comes to debt, like I've learned, you just gotta focus on that first, get that priority done, learn balance. If you are into investing and trading, like don't put all your eggs into investing and trading. Like if you got debt that needs to be paid off, focus on that debt. And you can put a little bit aside towards trading and build that up, but if you know you're not in a good mind state, you gotta sometimes step back and let yourself get situated first. Because I mean, at this point, I've gotten to a place where, you know, I'm not so desperate to make money in the market. Like the market's always going to be there. There's always going to be opportunities, and I will get back more into the market when I get myself situated, because there is a lot of opportunities, and it's a long game. It's not a short game. It's, you know, you take your time and you get the money out of the market when you can get it, but you got to be in a good mind state. So reality is, you know, just priorities, focusing on those priorities on the debt first, and then those extra things that you want to do to level up, you can put a little bit to those. But if you got things you got to take care of. Put that as a priority over anything. So pretty much, yeah, the whole reason I'm still in debt is, you know, money management, not prioritizing the right things. But there'll be a time later down the road that I'll be talking about my experience of how I got through it. But this is just here in the middle of it.